Hello everybody, welcome to number 27, another episode with the fabulous Influenzo. Today I'm going to be giving this car a tune-up. I had, as you know, just replaced the heads, and so today there's a few things that I'm going to do. The linkages to the carbs had remained roughly the same. So the carbs aren't too far off, but there is a bit of an imbalance from what I remember from front to back. So today I'm going to check all that, firstly with the traditional method, as used by Ian Tyrrell. But because I'm not Ian Tyrrell, I'm going to check what I'm doing with this afterwards, just to make sure I've got the right end of the stick. Also, I'm going to be taking all the plugs off and just checking and see what colouring is on them to give me an indication on the richness that I need to try and aim for. So there's two aspects to today. First of all, there is just making sure that they're running roughly at the right mixtures. Secondly, once that's sorted, I'm going to try and balance them using the old method and checking it with the modern method as well. There is another little surprise. Something has changed about the Influenzo. Can you tell what it is? So before, when I did my last video, well, last before the rebuild, I did a test with an i3 to try and compare the efficiency of the two cars. It was a bit silly, but it was fun. But while I was turning around, I hit a mud bank and cracked the front spoiler. So that needed refixing and repainting, but also there were other bits of the car. There were stone chips on the front. There was another couple of nicks here and there. So I brought it to my friends at Casey Auto Colours in Whitney, who have done a repaint of the whole front clam, a couple of other little bits. So unfortunately, I had to drive it straight home from the paint in the rain. So it's a little bit dirty. I haven't had time to clean it, but you can see it does look great. This is their website address. Do get in touch with them if you need anything. They're really great guys, really passionate about cars. The plugs are all looking pretty good actually, so there's no trace of oil, which is great. Some of the ones on the rear bank are actually tan or very slightly grey, which is excellent. On the back, there's a couple that look like they're running very slightly lean, but I'll show you how to check that in terms of tweaking the mixture. Once the mixtures are good, then we'll get on to balancing. Here I am, like a real pro, not being able to tell the slightest bit of difference between any of the cylinders. So the angle of the camera is slightly misleading, but this bank, basically, the readings are just below 3, particularly on the left side, which is cylinder 2. Cylinder 3 and 4 here are pretty much bang on 3, so there's a slight discrepancy between those two banks. At the back, the figure's above 3 on that left bank and even higher on the right bank there, which is cylinders just 7 and 8. So as I expected from last time, there seems to be an imbalance mainly between the front and rear bank, especially that carb is running a bit quicker, or those two cylinders are running a little bit quicker. Now it's interesting because I did try the internal method with the pipe, and I have to tell you, I could not tell the difference between all the carbs. Perhaps, but it could be just suggestion. There was a little bit of a difference there, but nowhere near as sensitive as that. So I will be using that now to do the tune-up. So what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to try altering the mixtures just to get them all a bit closer. The ones that are idling a bit lower, and there are a couple that are idling a bit slow there, I'm going to try and get them to move up, and then finally I'll do the balancing between the two. So the technique that I use here is to turn the mixture screw in, so to make it leaner until the revs really drop, then richen it up until they sort of pick up again and then start to drop again, and then wind it back to the ideal setting. Okay, so I've done some adjustments, but to be honest, it seemed that it was easier to adjust the mixture just by listening to the engine revs rather than by using the air meter. Now definitely there's some adjustment. I think the main thing is going to be, I've richened up these back ones a little bit, these 3, just half a turn, not very much, because it seems to be running so well. But adjusting between these two back carbs is really easy. It's this screw here, you get it from this side. It's very progressive and it's really easy to sync them up, and I'll do that in a minute. Front to back is adjusted with this rod here, And that is just the devil's work. You essentially have to undo these two nuts and then shorten it or lengthen it. But you get it spot on, and the moment you tighten up the nuts, it goes out again. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge. Cylinders 1 and 2 that you see now are running slightly below 3, which is slower than on that left bank. I don't know if you could see that, but the left bank was running dead on 3. So I needed to raise the revs, so to balance between the two. That mechanism there, quite simple to use. I just knocked it there, which is why the revs moved. But as I slowly tweak it, you'll see that that bar will get closer to 3. So it's going up, and now bang on 3. And as we move them around, this one's still a little bit lower, but still much closer side to side, and that's acceptable. They're all pretty much on 3. So as always, it didn't quite go 100% to plan. For a start, I thought that the problem was with the linkage to the front and the back. But when I originally did the testing, I did it while the car was idling, which is okay to get the balancing side to side, but not to see if the linkage from front to back is properly adjusted. Well, not fully anyway, but there was an issue with the way that the rear carbs, the actual idle screw, was adjusted, which meant that when I tried to balance between them, they wouldn't properly because it wasn't sitting on the idle screw. So once I sorted that out, I then put the throttle so that there was some tension on it, so that the carbs were on the throttle to a degree, because when I balance them, I also want to see what it's doing while it's pulling on the throttle, not just on the throttle stops. And in actual fact, as you can see, I did one, so the revs were probably about 1500 when I did this, maybe a bit less. But they are all really pretty much spot on now, and I have to say, pretty much a success. One more thing I want to do. So I had checked the timing before, the ignition timing I'm talking about, when I did the rebuild, but I just want to make sure it is still pretty much spot on. So I'm looking for about 9 degrees at idle, so which is about sort of 900, 950 RPM. So that hasn't changed, still pretty spot on. I am quite tempted to just advance it a little bit more like 11, but what I need to do that is just check what the timing is at 5,000 RPM, because it shouldn't be more than, I think, 39. I need to double check on that. But that's really the safest way to do it. I'm not just going to advance it off the idle and hope for the best. So that might be something for another time. The influenza is now good. The last thing to do though, after these little adjustments, because I have richened up a touch some of the carbs and stuff, I've mucked around with it a little bit, is to just take it out and see how it drives. With you, in the car from here, it doesn't sound quite as good as when I turn on the sound from that rear camera, but it still sounds pretty amazing, and it's just incredible how far this car has come from when I first got it. I mean, there is just no comparison to how it drives. It's now driving better than it ever has done. It just feels like a car. That first time when I took it home and I took it out for a drive, I just didn't realise quite how bad everything was on it. It was awful. So anyway, now the engine is responsive, it pulls all the way, it's clean. So I'm really happy. I think that's definitely helped. I think the next stage is, what am I going to do with it? I would keep it, but being an open top car, I don't really like convertibles. Generally I always end up with them, but I don't particularly like them. They're not my favourite
cars, and I don't know, if it was a coupe, I'd definitely keep it. As it is, I'm going to use it for a little bit and then make a decision. It's quite nice. Honestly, this is the first time I've driven it. The new suspension helps as well. It's the first time I've driven it on this road, and I've actually enjoyed it and driven it reasonably swiftly without being half terrified. Steering responds pretty well. I mean, as I said, it's not a proper sports car in that vein. There's just too much sort of flex in the chassis on a bumpy road anyway. You're just better off a nice smooth road going through the gears, but loving it. Thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't, have a look at the video I did comparing this to an electric car. I know it's a bit of an odd one, but it might be quite fun. Thank you very much, and see you for the next video.